Learning Curves and Coffee, where we skip the perfection, spill the real, and talk parenting, teaching, and personal growth over a hot cup. I'm Ivory, a mother, edupreneur, and your caffeinated co-pilot through the meltdowns, meetings, and magical moments. Let's get into it. Good morning, good afternoon, wherever you are listening. Thank you for tuning in per usual. I'm Ivory, the founder of Embracing Neurodiversity and the host of the Learning Curves and Coffee podcast. Let's start with a difficult truth today. Sometimes what we call helping our kids is actually control. I know. That can sting a little bit. And I want to jump in because last week we talked about how to norm and reset how we see our children and to root ourselves in not seeing them as a problem to fix, right? And in that, I briefly spoke about the difference between support versus control. And I mentioned that I was going to expound on it in the next podcast. So let's dive into it and let's dig in. Because most parents genuinely love their children deeply. I work with parents daily and I hear it in their voices and their affect and their curiosity and the questions. We want them to be safe, successful, regulated, happy, and accepted. If we're being honest, of course, we all do. Acceptance is tied to safety. But if we're honest, sometimes our parenting decisions are less about what our child actually needs and more about what makes us feel less anxious, more in control, what makes us as parents feel safe, quote unquote, right? When we think about support says, I want to help you thrive. Control says, I need you to make me comfortable, right? That's the distinction. And the difference between those two can change everything about your child's lived experience and your experience too. We all have had these stories. I certainly have in public spaces, at the grocery store, at a restaurant. I remember times when my son would be overstimulated in the grocery store. Maybe it was the lights, maybe it was the sound, maybe it was too many people, and his nervous system was just done. And then the meltdown happened because we know that all behavior is communication. Meltdowns are not defiance, it is communication. And in that moment, I had two experiences happening during a public meltdown. My son was overwhelmed and I was embarrassed. That distinction matters, and it's important that we call that out because initially my brain was thinking, how do I support him right now? And then my brain began to think, everybody is looking at me right now. And look, once I became aware of that, I realized something that quite frankly is uncomfortable. A lot of parenting reactions are actually adult discomfort responses. They're not parenting. They are adult discomfort and reactivity, right? There's this powerful idea in the Conscious Parenting book that I've been reading that says many parents are conditioned to believe our job is to fix or control our kids. It is a conditioning that we perhaps learned in our own upbringing by observing and experiencing our own parents and caregivers. And honestly, neurodiverse parents get this messaging more often than others, whether it's said directly or indirectly. We are given messages like, make them sit still, make them act appropriately, Make them stop stimming. Make them tolerate things that overwhelm them. But here's the problem. When comfort becomes the goal, connection suffers. And I had to ask myself, was I parenting for my child's well-being or for social approval? And that's a constant question that we must reflect on and then improve upon. I don't think this is any surprise to any of you, but research from the Child Mind Institute shows that children develop stronger emotional regulation and self-confidence when caregivers prioritize emotional safety and co-regulation over punishment and behavior control. I've said this several times in my podcast, and I can't emphasize it enough. In studies on autonomy supportive parenting, which essentially is giving your child permission to guide in the process of parenting, right? Autonomy supportive parenting consistently shows that children thrive when they feel understood, respected, and emotions are secure, not micromanaged. I've been thinking about this a lot, that you cannot do anything if your nervous system is not regulated. Meaning if you don't feel calm and comfortable and your anxiety is managed, no one can do anything from a baby to an adult, right? So what does this mean in practice? Control may create temporary compliance, but support builds long-term trust. We are in this for the long game, right? Now, I want to be very clear about something. Control doesn't always look harsh. It doesn't always look like yelling or being stern and all of these practices that we believe are discipline, but are actually rooted in some other toxic behavior, so we can unpack later. Sometimes control, though, is subtle and well-meaning, and it looks loving, it looks concerned, it even looks responsible. But underneath it is fear. It sounds like, stop crying, people are staring. Have you ever told your child to stop crying? It looks like or sounds like, why are you behaving this way? Just act normal for 5 minutes. Or why can't you just do what everybody else is doing? Why can't we just have a peaceful, normal moment, right? Like, we've said this before as parents. We're human, I should say. Or you're making this harder than it has to be. We've said this as parents, right? It happens. It happens. We've all been socialized to move around the world in a different way. And what our children do is they throw a monkey wrench in that process. And our response sometimes can be reactive through frustration. And sometimes control becomes over-managing. Scripting every interaction, telling your child what to say, overcorrecting, constantly correcting, overscheduling therapy. Sometimes we can over-therapize our children and they need a break. Hovering over our kids, not giving them physical space to navigate and move about the world and how they see. Never allowing discomfort for yourself and your child. Discomfort breeds resiliency, right? We talked about this before, so not even allowing your child to experience that is problematic. And not allowing for independence. This is about giving your child as best as an opportunity to thrive. And the way that you do that is to giving them an opportunity to be independent, teaching them the skills to do things on their own. If we get in the way of that, we impact their ability to grow. Because oftentimes fear whispers, if I don't control this, everything will fall apart. It is a mindset that is untrue, but we have adopted, right? So I want to tie this into our discovery, acceptance, and embracing framework. Discovery asks, what is driving my response right now? you're doing some self-reflection in this moment. Is this truly about my child's needs, or is it about embarrassment, fear, judgment, comparison, grief, you know? And then listen to your response. This is the awareness piece. It's very important. With no judgment, you're having this conversation with yourself so no one knows. And then acceptance means acknowledging that your child may move through the world differently, and different is not defective. Acceptance says, my child's sensory needs are real, their nervous system is real, their emotions are real, and my job is not to erase their humanity to make other people comfortable. And lastly, embracing. This is where parenting softens, not permissive, not chaotic, intentional. No, I did not say perfect. I did not say easy. Those are different things, right? I said soften. This is where we shift from how do I stop a behavior to what support does my child need right now? And that shift is monumental, but that habit gets easier over time. So, before we close out, I want to give you some ways that you can shift from control to support. 6 ways, right? Pause before reacting. You may feel it in your gut and your throat to respond in the moment. But when your child is struggling, ask yourself, am I responding to their distress or my discomfort? Then that question alone will support your intentional parenting, right? Number 2, separate safety from social expectations. Safety is fundamental and the number one, and is the foundation, right? But not every socially unexpected behavior is harmful. Stimming is not harmful. Needing headphones is not harmful. Taking breaks is not harmful. Different is not dangerous, right? Know the difference between the two. Stop parenting for the audience. And this is a big one, especially with social media and Instagram and this idea of, perfect parenting or whatever the case may be. Some parents are parenting for their family members, I should say, for teachers and for strangers that they don't even see. Again, for social media, for cultural expectations. Meanwhile, their child is struggling. So, ixnay the audience. 4, co-regulate before you correct, right? And so before I respond, I'm going to make sure I am as calm as possible. A dysregulated child cannot absorb lectures. So wait until they also are calm and regulated, and then follow back up with what you want them to know and to learn. So connection first, correction second. Side note, I wish I would have known this earlier in my career as a teacher. Things would have been so much more easier. So also educators, think about that in your classroom as well. Number 5, allow age-appropriate autonomy. Again, going back to that independence piece. Support helps children build capacity. Control creates dependence. I don't know about you, but my goal is for Khalil to be able to take care of himself and thrive without me one day, which will happen. But how that happens is if I give him the autonomy that he naturally deserves. So let your children make choices. Give them options, even minute ones, between different clothes that they want to wear in the morning, the different shoes that they want to wear, what color, food options. Give them the option to choose. Start small. Allow them to solve a problem. Allow them to advocate for themselves. Allow them to recover from mistakes, right? And lastly, number 6, ask, what is the need beneath the behavior, right? Behavior is communication. A meltdown might mean sensory overload, anxiety, fatigue, transition difficulty, and some sort of unmet need. Do your best to find the source. Support means getting curious. Control is being reactive. And if I can be transparent about something, sometimes support is harder than control. Trust me, I know. Because control feels immediate. Control gives us the illusion of certainty and power. No, I said illusion. But support, it requires patience and flexibility and humility, a huge level of humility. And support asks us to regulate ourselves as parents first. And we cannot expect from our kids what we also are not exhibiting, right? And that's the real work. So, I want to leave you with this. Your child should not have to abandon themselves to receive your love, and you should not have to control every part of your child to feel good as a parent. The goal is not perfect behavior. The goal is relationship. The goal is safety. The goal is raising children who feel deeply seen and known and not managed, right? And sometimes the most supportive thing we can do is stop trying to force our kids into our comfort zones that were never built for them in the first place, right? So as always, I appreciate you all. Thank you for joining me for another episode of Learning Curves and Coffee. And if this episode resonated with you, send it to another parent or educator or caregiver who is learning the difference between raising compliant kids and connected ones. So, as always, until next time, keep your coffee strong, your nervous system regulated, and your parenting rooted in connection. And as always, take care of yourself. Bye. Hi, welcome back. Thank you for tuning in per usual. This is Learning Curves and Coffee.